My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, I'm Ruth Kilah from Hoxton, Hyde, and today's leadership quote is, "When you say yes to others, make sure you are not saying no to yourself," from Paulo Coelho.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast.
Assistants are workplace heroes, and as such, transitioning safely and securely from remote work to an in-office environment is top of mind. And we all know that every superhero needs a sidekick. Enter today's sponsor, Swiped On. Swiped On is the fastest growing visitor and employee management software. With tools like contactless sign-in, visitor screening, and evacuation management, Swiped On can help provide the peace of mind every assistant and their team deserves. So the next time you hear, "What's your plan for the office as we return to work?" or "How will the hybrid workplace look for us?" you can respond confidently knowing Swiped On has you covered. To learn more or sign up for a free 14-day trial, visit swipedon.com/leaderassistant. That's swipedon.com/leaderassistant. And when you're ready to move forward, be sure to use my exclusive discount code for 20% off their annual plan. The discount code is LEADER20. That's LEADER20 for 20% off their annual plan. So reopen your business safely today with Swiped On. Hey friends, thanks for tuning into the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm speaking with Ruth Kilah. Ruth is in Australia. Is that right, Ruth?
Yeah, that's right, Jeremy.
And could you tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get into a little bit about how you ended up there?
Sure. I'm a productivity and wellbeing strategist, and I am the founder of a company called Hoxton Hyde, which assists and helps administrators and assistants to increase their productivity and prioritize work-life balance. And I started this business a couple of years ago, and we'll be launching a course next month.
Awesome. And you have extensive experience as a senior executive assistant. Can you tell us a little bit about your career as an assistant?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah, like many assistants, I fell into it. It wasn't a strategic move. I actually started after graduating from a business degree. I started in a sales role in hospitality in London, and I was only in that role for about a year, just over a year, when my role was made redundant due to a restructure of the hotel, to which I took that opportunity to do a bit of travelling around Europe. And upon returning to London, I decided to make a change with my work, and I loved the hospitality industry, but I felt that I wanted to really make the most of my opportunity there in the United Kingdom to be able to do lots of travel, and a lot of the shift work that I was doing in the hospitality sector wasn't allowing that amount of travel that I wanted to do. So I just thought, I broaden my wings and explore other avenues. So I decided to take up temping or temporary work within the administrative function in London. And I did that for about 6 months. I started off, I think the first role was switchboard. So I don't know if you, Jeremy, have done that role, but it's very, very high pressure for a first off administrative role. And then there was sort of kind of receptionist role, and all sorts of coordinator positions. And I did that for 6 months, and each role I didn't stay in for more than about 2 weeks, which gave me great exposure to different industries, different roles, different leaders, and different organisations that I could possibly work with. And it turned out nearly every role that I was in a temporary position for offered me a full-time position, which was wonderful. I just kept on temping because I wanted to have that flexibility at the time, but it was a wonderful way to develop my career there and kind of gain a bit of exposure. And after 6 months, I took a temporary position covering a position for a personal assistant or executive assistant role, whilst the Full-Say were searching for a full-time executive assistant role. And whilst I was there, I decided to apply for it. And I got it. So I went in, after no experience, after 6 months, went into EA to CEO role. And I must admit, a lot of that was backing myself, even though I was going into complete uncharted territory, because it was for a CEO who was doing a lot of international travel for a large accounting consultancy firm, global one. So, it was a highly pressurized, full-on role. And as I said, lots of international travel, board meetings, etc. And I learned a lot very fast. I was definitely very green, and I definitely said yes to everything. And as a result, was continuously unwell and burnt myself out a number of times during that role. But as I said, I learnt a lot about the profession, but also about myself. That's just a long-winded story about my background. Moving into the assistant space anyway.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your burnout. What was kind of maybe some signs, or did you learn any kind of triggers, I guess, that you now can kind of keep an eye out for, to know that you're heading down that path again, or you might be heading down the path of burnout?
Yeah, sure. Back then I used to get, my turn was cold sores on my lip, and which I don't get anymore, which is amazing. So, and they can be damn right annoying little things. And I used to get them almost like, they would appear and then, be on my lip for, a week or a bit. So annoying, so ugly. And they would then disappear, and then a week later they'll appear again. And that was my, looking back now, that was my telltale sign that I was getting so run down. My immune system was at zero. I just was always picking up every illness, and just constantly felt fatigued, really tired. So I would say it's like those key things. Like for some people, they easily get a sore throat, or they'll easily get a migraine, or they'll easily, maybe like myself, get a cold sore or something like that. There'll be a telltale sign that will be in repeat behavior or a pattern that should be telling a story and is sending you a message. So for me, it was that it was always that something had to change.
Yeah, it's interesting how our bodies try to tell us, "Hey, slow down," and we just we'll just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
we need to pay attention to ourselves.
Yeah. So then, in your next role or next couple of roles as an assistant, I think you worked at GE for a while. Is that right?
Yeah.
So were you still kind of pushing hard and pushing through the burnout, or did you kind of have a reset before you got to that role, for example?
Yeah. So in the middle of that, when I moved back to Australia is when I worked for General Electric, and that's when I completely reset. It was towards my end of my career when I was living in London is when I started to make that change with how I worked and how I lived my life. But yeah, it was a complete, definite reset when I came back to Australia. and started working for GE, I definitely was working very, very differently. I think. Well, for me, it was when I was towards the end of my career in London is when I committed to running the Paris Marathon, deciding to kind of do something different and bold. And it was through that process of committing to so many hours of training that I realised that you can't burn yourself out at work. You really, if you want to be fit and healthy and commit to a run like that, you need to look after yourself, mind and body, to be able to perform. So it was during that process that it also reflected in my work as well, because I realised there was more to just working long hours. I enjoyed my work and loved being an assistant, loved it. But I also realised that there was more to it, more to work than more to life, should I say, than work. So, definitely spending that time exercising and training was a wake-up call, and decided that change in terms of how I would live my life.
So for those listening, myself included, who are like, I don't ever want to run a marathon, what can we do to start taking care of ourselves? And if we do see and recognize that we are burning out and that our bodies are trying to tell us, hey, you need to slow down, you need to take care of yourself, what are some things we can do other than running a marathon?
It's very, everyone's different. Everyone, their version of what is a healthy lifestyle, what is meaningful for them is different. So going back to that first thing about listening to your body and what you need, but also when you want to start that process of looking after yourself, you need to just first of all sit down and realize what's important to you. Is it not just the healthy, the exercising and eating the right food, but what else is important in my life? Is it my family? Is it my friends? Is it time for myself to develop personally as well? So in terms of the initial health, healthy eating and exercising or moving your body more, it's just paying attention to all the aspects in your life which are meaningful and give you wellness and balance, and give you a feeling of fulfillment in those areas. So my first initial kind of suggestion would be for you all to kind of look at your life holistically and see not just from the exercising and food part of it, but what is also meaningful to you and it's going to give you back fulfillment. So
if, let's say family is important to me,
mm-hmm.
Do you have kind of a process that you take your clients through to, guide them to a couple of practical tips on wellness?
Yeah. And that is, I get clients to sit down and work through if it's family that's important to you, to what does that look like? And be really specific. Is it how frequently, where and how? And to really make focused time for family, if that's important for you in your well-being, if that's a prime priority for you, and to make the time. And when I say make the time, you block the time physically in your calendar, because life is so busy and interruptions occur all the time. And sure, there's going to be, interruptions with work, urgent stuff will pop up, but without those constant reminders that, maybe you have a family dinner every week with your extended family, or you want to attend, family sporting events with your children each week, or pick them up from your kids up from school, or those kind of activities, unless they're in your calendar, unless you make time for them and really prioritize them, they're so easily to be overridden by other people's priorities.
Yeah, I like there's a executive podcast host named Pat Flynn. I've actually interviewed his amazing assistant, Jess Lindgren, in one of my prior episodes.
Yeah.
But one of his kind of vision or missions in life was to be able to pick up his kids from school every day. And so whatever he was doing with his business, he wanted to have the flexibility to pick them up from school every day. So even just simple things like that, when, like you said, like blocking those off, adding that to your calendar, can be very powerful.
Yeah. And I always say to assistants, like, that's important to your leader. Don't be afraid to communicate if that's something that's important to you. Mm-hmm. People value people who share their values. So if your leader is communicating to you that they really need to go and pick up their children at X time, then don't hesitate to have that conversation and say, it's really important. This is something that I'd like to do every day. How can we maybe work this into, it might not be every day. It might be every second day or third day. I don't know in terms of what that could look like for everyone. But I always say, don't be scared to have that conversation because you never know if you don't ask. Mm-hmm. And I've met plenty of assistants that are so scared to ask that conversation, to have that conversation with their leaders, and when they do, they're in complete disbelief and and shocked, and and now kicking themselves. They shouldn't have asked earlier that they for that allowance, which is just so small, but it's so meaningful to them. Whether it be family time, or time to go to the gym, or go for a walk at lunchtime, or to have maybe a delayed start to their day because they want to be able to drop off their child, that kind of any of those kind of arrangements. So, yeah, I always say to people, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I remember talking to an assistant years ago, and he was like, yeah, my executive likes it when I take, a long lunch break in the middle of the day and get a quick workout in because I'm more alert and productive the rest of the day on those days that I do that.
Yep, you'll be firing all cylinders. Yeah, absolutely. By getting out and moving, people don't believe me, but if you get out of your seat at lunchtime and just move, whenever you have lunch, that is, just move your body, come back, and I swear you'll be firing on all cylinders when you come back, because you've moved your joints, you've used your muscles, and you've got your blood pumping through your body, and your brain will be far more active and on fire to be able to tackle the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. So I love how you talk about, even in your bio, you talk about how, you're a certified fitness and wellness coach, and you're also a productivity and well-being strategist. There's this, oftentimes in the world, we fight or there's a tension between productivity and the health and wellness of our, it's like, oh, well, if I'm going to be productive, I've got to sacrifice my health and my late nights, and I just got to work more, or I got to work faster and harder.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and even some of the top leaders in history, they take naps in the middle of the day.
Yep.
And it's like the people that are truly productive and, truly game changing have that opposite, the anti-hustle vibe, if you will. So anyway.
Yeah, no, it's I always say to people, there's always the siesta is I wish that was more frequent, because Because, like we all have different working styles and working rhythms. Some of us are more productive throughout the day, in the morning, some of us in the afternoon, and some of us overnight. And some of us, our productivity, we're always switched on. So it's very hard for us to switch off. Mm-hmm. So we have bad sleep patterns. Some people have just genetically have bad sleep patterns because usually very highly intelligent types. And as a result, they need more frequent rest periods throughout the day because they don't have like they're not really switched on in the morning or predictably switched on in the afternoon or at night. It's kind of all sporadically throughout the day and night. So those types of people actually would benefit. And it doesn't surprise me that leaders in high positions, highly intelligent individuals, would require a siesta and would schedule that in. It's a very smart and intelligent thing to do, actually.
Yeah. So what would be your advice? And, a lot of people right now are working from home and may still be working from home and remotely for a while, at least probably even more so than before the pandemic. Those are more hybrid, remote, in-office opportunities. What are your top 2 tips for those listening when it comes to, you mentioned get up and move around at lunch, things like that, just simple, practical tips that they can just start doing today to really help them be productive and also prioritize their health?
Yeah, I would say that it can be really difficult working from home for a lot of people, and you definitely need to make sure you create boundaries between work and home life. There's for workaholics but they're also engaged workaholics like myself, who I could work all day every day because I love my job. It's not. As I said, as some people will say, it doesn't feel like work. So, but I still create boundaries because I need to invest time and I want to spend time with all my other priorities in life, family, friends, my home life, for example. So I would say with people when they're working from home is to ensure you have structure to your day and that you block time as if you were working in the office, block time to go for lunch, set reminders that pop up that you've got lunch break coming up so that you treat it as if you're working in the office, and step away from your desk. Go and if you're working at home, step away from your desk, your computer, and go and have lunch in the kitchen or outside, depending on the weather, and after your lunch, go for a walk or go to the gym or move your body. And then when you've, gone for a walk or moved your body, come back to your desk and start working again. I find a lot of people when they're working from home, and I know historically for myself, it's the end of the day that becomes quite tricky. I'm lucky enough that I have kids to pick up from preschool and daycare, so I kind of have a hard stop. But if I need to, I dip into any work in the evening, but I really, it's very rarely that I do. But I usually have got a hard stop reminder on my calendar to go and pick up kids. And for those who don't have kids or that kind of other people in their life that need to that help make a cut-off to the end of your day, I would encourage, again, creating a reminder in your calendar that the end of the day is coming up, and just to help wrap things up for that day, and to therefore signal the close of business essentially for you, for your work. I realise that assistants essentially are always on call. A lot of them are always on call. However, if you are someone who wants to make a change to your work-life balance, the biggest hurdle and the biggest key is communication, and that is communicating with other people around you what your boundaries are, whether at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So communicating with your manager, with your leader, with your executive on what those boundaries are, beginning of the day, end of the day, sharing with them, I'll be at my desk at 8 a.m. or whatever that time is, or 7 a.m. I don't know what, in terms of, in the US, predominantly a lot of people start work, but, communicating that. And also, at the end of the day as well, communicating what you're doing. And I'm going to be going for a walk at lunchtime. There's no shame in that. I think that's the one single most beneficial piece of advice I could give is not only implement boundaries, but communicate them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the game changer for me and my current executive is, my prior executive, I burned out and he burned out, and we didn't have any clear boundaries, and we just kind of worked all the time, anytime, everywhere. And my current executive and I sat down and I was like, listen, I need boundaries so that I can be the best assistant for a long time and not burn out again. And we shut off emails on the weekends and don't bug each other on the evenings and weekends unless it's urgent. And we work, like crazy during the on hours, and we rest well during the off hours.
Yeah. With one of my more recent or last executives that I work for, we had a similar kind of relationship, when we were at work, we were on and execute. But outside that, she could reach me, but she tended to not to, and only on emergencies. That's another big tip I always say to people is if you have a work phone, if you can, try and keep a personal phone as well, so you have that separation. And I find yes, it can be sometimes a little bit inconvenient to take two phones somewhere, but go back to that conversation with your leader about that you've just said, and kind of sitting down with them and saying, look, my phone's going to be with me at home, but, I'm not going to check it, my email over the weekend. If there's something critical urgent, just give me a call. Mm-hmm. And I'll get straight to it. I definitely had that conversation probably with my last 3 or 4 leaders, and the response to that was fantastic, no problem. And they rarely called me. So, it goes back to communication. Yeah.
So when you were excelling in your career and, can you reassure us that when you prioritized your well-being and when you communicated those boundaries, that it did not stunt your progression up the career ladder, if that makes sense?
Oh, absolutely not. If anything, it progressed it. Yeah. I mean, when with the numerous leaders that I've worked with, towards the end of my career, whenever I communicated with them, I actually said to them, I'd like to work from home one day a week because I find it's a good breakup of my work week here in the office. We're working in an open plan type office, which is great for networking, but it can be really disruptive to your productivity. And I communicated with them that, I would like to do that, continue doing that. And their response was, oh, great, I might do that too. So, and actually at one point, I think we agreed at once to work, I think, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to do 2 days a week, to break it up we found that we were more productive, both of us, when we were working from home certain weeks when there was a lot of work on. So, and especially in terms of exercise and taking lunch breaks away from my desk, I never, or very, very rarely, I can't actually remember ever sitting at my desk eating lunch. But it was a simple conversation around saying, look, to a manager, look, I really enjoy exercise. I really enjoy going to the gym. And I see that by doing this, I am investing in my health and well-being in order to be the best that I can be in this role. And there was never an issue. And And they all could always see that when I was in the office, I was always delivering. I was never not involved and delivering on what I was doing. So it gave them no reason to question that. And I think I always say to other people, if you take a look around you, going back to that leader that you were talking about previously, Jeremy, who left the office every day at a certain amount of time in order to pick up his kids. Well, if that man was in my office, I would be so respectful of that. And that he holds his children and family in such high regard, and one of his key value points, that I really respect that. And I think that goes to the same for any of us. If we share our values, what's meaningful and important to us, and we share it with others, others will respect that. And it's all about training as well, training everyone around us to get used to what we do, what's normal for our working hours as well. I think sometimes people are fearful of change, and sometimes others may have their opinions about, what it is to be productive. But what takes you might take you 5 minutes. It might take me 20 minutes to do. So why should you my view is, why should you have to stay in the office, or you stay in the office longer if you've already completed something and I'm still working and need me to spend longer on it. Or maybe I've been more distracted in the day, or talking more to people, or, looking at my phone, right. Not actually doing work. So it shouldn't be about hours that you're sitting at your desk.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about the way the world is shifting, and the way the pandemic has expedited the shift to kind of this hybrid remote work model. Even a lot of companies, I saw a Twitter thread the other day about these executives talking about the 4-day work week, and how, some companies are testing it out and saying, all right, you know what, let's just do a 4-day work week. There's
quite a few in Australia that are doing it. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's not about, just being in the office, 40, 50 hours a week. It's about being productive and getting your stuff done. And if you can get that stuff done in 3 or 4 days, why waste time sitting around trying to fill the time, like you said, checking your phone or chatting it up or whatever. So yeah, it's encouraging to see that there's a little more flexibility in the corporate world, slowly but surely.
Yeah. And I guess that's my whole premise is then, going back to what you're saying, that, historically the link between productivity and your work-life balance doesn't really go together. Well, in my you can't have a work-life balance without productivity. You need to ensure you are or know how to be productive in order to allow yourself to have a really good work-life balance. And when I say work-life balance, it's essentially life balance, and that looks different for every one of us. And it's about what makes sense for you, but it's about knowing how to work efficiently and productive in order to work on the right things, and what are your priorities, and to allow yourself to have or create a life that is balanced, whatever that is for you.
Yeah. Well said. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for chatting with us today. How can we find out more about Hoxton Hyde and reach out and connect with you to learn more?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn for my name, Ruth Kilah. Instagram, which is Hoxton Hyde, which is HOXTONHYDE, or via my website, which is www.hoxtonhyde.com.au.
Great, and I'll share the links in the show notes so it's easy for people to find you. And then just to wrap up real quickly, what makes an assistant a leader?
Many, many things, but I believe a true leader is someone who is passionate in investing and learning all the time and is hungry to learn all the time. And, it's not necessarily structured learning, but have asked questions in the workplace, continually ask the question why, and to never stop being inquisitive. And that's the only way you're only going to expand your learning. And it's amazing sometimes when you just ask simple questions, the simple question of why. So, yeah, I would say learning and development in all areas.
I love it. A leader assistant is inquisitive.
Yeah.
It's very powerful and sounds real classy too. I like it. Awesome, Ruth. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Absolute pleasure, Jeremy.
Hopefully we can meet in person someday. I'd love to make it out to Australia. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good luck with everything you're up to, and thanks for your passion for the assistant community.
No problem. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks again for listening. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/119.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com